Hey guys, welcome back to Poised in Progress. I'm your host Aria, and on this podcast we talk about everything about business while also talking about how to be more structurally sound in your business while using neuroscience. So if that interests you, make sure you guys follow this podcast or subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening from, and let's go ahead and get into today's episode. I'm so excited for today's episode. I really wanted to talk about this topic because I see so many people who are in a small business and they are wondering why they are not taking off, why things aren't doing better for them. And it's really because they're not being resourceful enough. So I'm excited. First off, before we get into the episode, let me tell y'all what your sister's going through right now, because it's affecting quite a bit of us. This heat. I wanted to put on a really cute outfit, but it's just so hot. I have to preserve my coolness for the rest of the day because if y'all don't know, I always film these episodes before I go into work, so I need to preserve my coolness. I am in Oklahoma, and when I tell you this weather is so hot, never experienced it before. Born and raised here, never experienced this before. So bear with your girl. I will be taking some sips out of my water to keep me nice and hydrated. And you should be hydrated too during this crazy August weather. So anyway, so this past Sunday, I decided to call up my little brother. My little brother's an accountant. Call him up and be like, hey, I'm about to start a second business, and before I move and try to add this thing onto my plate, I want to make sure I'm squared away when it comes to my current business. And my current business is an aesthetics business if you're new here, and I've actually about to hit 2 years in it September 1st, okay? I wanted to make sure I just knew that I need to know about my business, because with my aesthetics business, I'm kind of at the point where I'm thinking about pulling in employees or just handing off some of my work to other things that can help me so I can start putting more energy into my new business, because I also need to mention your girl's also in school, okay? Nursing. All right, so very busy bee or whatever. So I called him up and I asked him like, hey, you just break it down to me. Need some more information, yada yada. Long story short, your girl has been dropping the ball, okay? She's been dropping the ball on how to actually do her finances, how to actually expand within my finances when it comes to just my business, because although my sales business is doing pretty well, it doesn't really look like that because of how I structured it. And he was talking to me from a standpoint of how the IRS will be looking at it. And he was like, if you want deductions, we need to do something different. And so, yeah, I had to sit there and get yelled at by my little brother, me how we should have been doing this year one. Okay, you know what? I digress, because I am so proud of myself for not thinking I knew everything, not only listening to information that I've heard online and actually contacting somebody who knew this area way more than me, has a degree in it, and is pretty good with his own finances to help me be able to scale my business. And he gave me so many gems that I will definitely be taking that on and making sure to not be so careless. But the reason why I felt so proud of myself in that moment was because I was resourceful, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. There are so many times that I talk to people, not even just in the business aspect, and what I hear from them is that they are so gung-ho about this one specific way that they want to do something that they're not open to the opportunities of what everything else that could happen for them, because they're just so strict on the way that they want this one thing to go, right? And I'm telling you now, as somebody who used to think that she can do it all, she knew all the information, yada, you are hurting yourself more than helping yourself by having that type of mindset, okay? There comes a point where you really have to reflect on yourself, and you have to be real. When you are ready to start your own business, or you're in your own business, you have to really evaluate yourself a lot more, okay? In the car, I'm always like interviewing myself, because when I'm at work and like clients, they fall asleep, I'll put on my headphones and I just listen to podcasts all day long. I just listen to podcasts, just getting different takes on people's views on stuff. And I just feel like my brain just grows so much at work, like crazy. Of course, like I'm in my car, I'm jamming out. Sometimes, I don't know about anybody else, I listen to music all day at work. Sometimes I don't want to listen to it in the car. So I'm in the car and I'm like, okay, I'm about to talk to myself, because it's really one of my dreams to be invited onto like a podcast to talk about like coming up. That has always been something I thought about even as a young kid. And so I remember I was talking to myself and gave myself a question saying, what is the hardest part about owning a business, right? And when I answered, I said, that might be good for this week's episode. I answered and I said, the hardest part about running your business is letting go of control of any aspect of it, and knowing if you are actually doing the best thing for your business. And so what I meant by the letting go of control is understanding that you don't know everything and you have to go out and seek more information. And it was such a hard, if you're like type A, like myself, or if you're just a person who has been done wrong multiple times in the past, and so you're really reluctant on having other people come in and do stuff with your stuff, because at the end of the day, your business is your baby. Your business is something that you really want to grow, like something you take a lot of pride in, and you're very protective over it, such as myself. And so it's hard for you to even let anybody in to see any flaws, because you don't want them to say your flaws. And also, are they going to do it right? Are they going to protect it how you would protect it, right? And so as I'm asking myself that question, I'm answering that out in my car looking crazy, okay? I was seeing how I really needed to see if I'm doing that in my own business. And something I want to say, if you are not having a weekly business meeting with yourself, you are hurting yourself so much, because the reason why you need to have these meetings is because it's time for you to reflect and be real with yourself. When being real with yourself and having a conversation, you really need to have boundaries with yourself too. You're not having these meetings to drill yourself or like down, degrade yourself. And it's not just to tell yourself that you're doing everything amazing. The reason for the business meeting is actually for you to go through each layer of what your business is and see where the problem is, and have an honest conversation on how to fix that said problem, right? So that's the first thing I want to talk about that's the first thing is making sure to reflect and give yourself an honest answer on how you're doing and how you're getting stuff done, right? Whenever I was starting to reflect on myself and I was out of that area where I was no longer just such a in what I was doing, because when I was starting my business, I was a beginner lash tech. I was the beginner in brows. I was beginning in facials and skincare and all the stuff. I was a full-blown beginner. So it took a lot of work to even get to where I am at now, right? Because there were so many things that you had to learn at one time. It wasn't like I opened the business and I had my technique down, had my favorite type of systems down for each service, knowing how I wanted my clientele, many things that I didn't know and I had to grow into. So when you have all of that, it's harder to really be so regimented and so strict on a lot of things, because you're learning and adjusting a lot of things, right? So now that you've kind of over that little hump of just kind of confused on how everything works, this is where we need to really implement these good habits. And so the habit that we need to have is reflecting and seeing what in the world of my business is lacking. So something that my brother taught me that day where we went through our finances is budget should be like a goal. Have a goal of what your budget should look like, or how much money you actually want to make in that month. And I've heard that multiple times, but it really didn't click until I sat down with him. I was like, I should have what I want to make each month out there and create the budget towards it. You know what I'm saying? Because my issue, I did not know that, and I got that information. I was like, me taking off or being so strategic or so strict with understanding my inventory or how much I'm spending on my business each week, it's hurting myself actually hitting that set number I want to hit each month, because it's like that number, like the thing is not I want to just hit the number. I want to be able to sustain the number, keep that type of money in my bank account. But I was finding that like as soon as I'll get money, and I will be really strict myself, I don't really buy a lot of stuff that's just personal for me. I always try to invest in the business. But when you are not having a clear sheet or something of what you're doing, you can easily overspend in places that you don't need to overspend, or invest into the wrong things. And that's why you need to go talk to other people instead of yourself, okay? Earlier this year, I started to really get into neuroscience, really get into how the brain works and how different entrepreneurs think, so I can start adjusting my business to what I want it to be. Because like I was making money, I was making good money, but I knew I could be more and do more, especially based off of what my clientele looked like at that time and even to where it looks like now. And so one of the people that I ran across was Dan Martell. And I was really loving his videos would just talk about like how to structure out your day, how to buy back your time, And so through that, I decided to purchase his book, Buy Back Your Time. That book really changed my mind, and I want to talk about how. So the first way it changed my mind is if you are a woman, we always put ourselves down more than what things could actually be for us. And so hearing and then now reading about how he does things, that only really works. It does not, let me rephrase myself. That mainly works because he is a man. But it's not because he's just a man, but it's because men have that leeway to do stuff that much that it's easier for him to just go and do that and be fine. But us women, we are raised to understand so many things and to multi so many things that we feel like we can do everything, like can run the world, right? But the thing is, if you want to actually build this empire that you want, or you want to build this big business or start multiple business, you have to give some tasks to other people to be able to have the mental power and the mental capacity to do other things. And so reading that book really taught me, I said, okay, stop thinking like a woman, and I started thinking like a man. And so how I started thinking like a man, I started to understand that men will go out there and try things, even if they have no experience in it. They don't have any idea how things work. They will just go sign up for it. And then a woman who would probably not do it at all. So something I heard way back when that always stuck with me, school, I think, it was saying like, men will go and apply to a job that they're underqualified for, and women won't even fill out an application for a job they're overqualified for because they feel like they won't get the job. They feel like because they might, maybe if you don't check off one thing, you are unqualified for said job. That's what women do. And so how I tested that theory was nursing school, right? So I knew that I wanted to get into nursing school, but I wanted to go to a top school, right? I wanted to go to a top school. At the time, I was taking classes at a community college. So I remember me and my friend, we are taking these classes back to back. We are getting it in, and these are the hardest classes. We're taking microbiology, AP 1 and 2, which is anatomy and physiology, chemistry, like we are getting this in, right? So now it's time to go ahead and apply for our nursing program. And I remember really wanting to push my friend to go ahead and apply. Mind you, our grades were really similar. I think hers were actually a little bit higher than mine, right? And I was trying to tell her, like, I want to get it done. Like, I don't want to have to go back and get my BSN. Like, I want to get it all done in one go. She's like, yeah, I'm just going to have to do it this way, whatever. But we're talking about it. I decided to do what I read. And I was like, no, like, I'm going to apply anyway. Like, my grades were not the best as far as the science portion. Now, my other grades were fine. But the grades for the science, which is the most important, they were not, like, A's, right? So I was like, I don't care, I'm going to apply. And during this time, and this is no shade to her, but she was always telling me about how other people who were applying to programs weren't getting in. Like, weren't getting in, and they had better grades than us, and this, that, and third, and they're not getting into the program. And she was just so stressed about getting into the program. And during this time, the whole time, it was no doubt in my mind that I was going to get into this program. Like, down in my mind that I was like, I don't care how this person did it, I'm gonna just try anyway. And basically on the page, like, I'm going through the application, I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna get into this program. I have no clue if I'm gonna get into this program, because I was like, girl, do you even have enough preference points? Because if you're not familiar with nursing school, they go off of preference points, right? And I paid the $60 and I submitted it. Right. Okay. The whole time, mind you, when I applied, life was bad. This is when the stuff with my car went on. I had to go ahead and take this one class in the summer. Like, I was not really doing too well mentally during this time, right? But I applied anyway, because that's what men do. They don't care that if they don't fully have all of the requirements. They're going to apply regardless, right? So I applied. I'm going throughout the months, and then I randomly get an email that was like, if you are not wanting to do this semester, then you can be put on a wait list, And I was like, what? I was like, what is that? I was like, did I get in? I emailed the school, because I don't see no letter, no email, nothing. I emailed the school. I said, hey, I got this. So I'm just trying to see, did I get it in? Because we weren't actually supposed to find out if we got in, I think, until like weeks later. Then 2 days later happens, and I get the acceptance letter that I got into this university. That transcended the game for me, y'all. It transcended the game for me, because I'm not going to that school anymore based off of personal, but I'm going to a different school now. But anyway, the fact that I did not care that how other people got in or how other people did stuff or whatever like that, I went with my thing, and I just got in, and that was it. It's before I even got into school, I want to backtrack. When I was at the school and this college had came up to my school that I was at, I decided to go talk to them and ask them what am I required for. So they said, as long as you got all their acceptance tests for the school that I was at, you're going to get in. There's a really good chance for you to get into the school. So instead of going off of fear, instead of going off of only what I knew, I went and I asked about the information, and I knew based off of their information, I would get into that program. And even though there was no 100%, and getting into nursing programs, especially at really big universities that are really highly ranked, it's really hard to get into those. Just based off of his information alone, and also me not having everything as a disqualification of me being in that school, I still applied and I ended up getting into the school, right? But the only reason I had the confidence to do that was because I went and looked out for the information to get even applied to said school. I want to be a little bit more transparent with you guys. If you were to go look at my social media, today I will actually unarchive my YouTube videos from back in the day. You would probably be like, this girl is always doing the right thing. She's always getting stuff done. Like, just very organized. I'm going to be honest. I am a type A, type B. Okay? Type A in the way I get things done. Like, very good at getting things done. I'm type B in figuring out all the information of stuff, right? When I say be resourceful, there also has to be a hint of faith that goes into that, right? So when I'm going out and I'm looking for information, I listen to what I need to listen to, and then I did. Anything that I feel that will overcrowd my brain and make me anxious, make me think harder into it, I try to filter that out and not pay attention to that aspect too much, because I know that as long as I have what is fact, I am fine. So when you are going out and being resourceful and getting the information that you need to elevate yourself, you need to have boundaries on how that is going to go. So you could be like me, who is very selective with their hearing, okay? I'm not gonna say that is good in all things, but for me, it has worked out quite a bit where things are just happening. So for another example of me just doing stuff on a whim, right? I knew I wanted to have my own suite, right? I was working at a med spa. I was ready to leave the med spa. I literally went to Colorado, came back and said, I'm done here. By the next month, I should be in my own suite, right? So while I was at work, I would go and I would plan out different things I wanted in my suite. The stuff I needed to have, like that's the type A. Like when I wanted to have in my suite, how I wanted to look, what services I was going to do, how I was going to price the services, books to read to be able to become a good business owner. That's the type A. That's what I did. But as far as finding the suite, girl, I went on Facebook Marketplace and was like, suites to rent, office spaces to rent. Seeing the one that I felt like was in a good location, because I did research location wise, right? Seeing one that I wanted in a good location, DM'd him like, I want to come check it out, looked at it, did not ask any other information, messaged him, said, I want it. Okay, let me go back to the type B. Type B is that sister did not have the money for said suite. Now, I did have, like, boyfriend at the time did actually help me out and paid for my first 2 months being in there, which I'm very grateful for him for doing that. And the thing is, though, going back to being resourceful, right? I had the plan, that type A, whatever, planning it out. But my whole thing was I had a plan on how I was going to get that suite, even without him even offering that at first. So because I went and I didn't do everything in my head, right? I was planning on getting a second job just to work to pay for my suite. Like just to work to pay for my suite, I was going to get a whole nother job. And because I told him my plan, he was like, no, I think you can actually do this and be able to work in this full time. So I'm going to go ahead and invest in your plan and I'm going to pay for those first 2 months. And then after that, you should be at this point because I know how your work ethic is, right? So he was right. With that second month, I could completely pay for that plus my supplies and give myself a little bit of money by that second month. So there goes the resourcefulness, was like him the control to buy that suite or like down a deposit and pay for that month's rent. That was really hard for me. Because the longest time I had been so, got it, Ari's gonna do it. Ari's gonna do everything. And to even get that control of maybe like coming back and like to be like, well, I did this for you and this is why you're so successful. That was something I was so afraid of. So I could have really asked my parents, siblings, like I could have asked. But because I could have asked him before I even decided, like, I mean, he had said that I had actually already went to the job interview and accepted the job. Like, I had actually already did that. But because I decided to be vulnerable and allow that control to be left, now within 2 more months of that, I was full-time there. And now I'm going to my second year. I'm now moving into a bigger space for my business. And now I'm actually at a good point. I haven't had to work a second job. I've been able to put myself through school. And also now I'm about to start another business. Like, see how that one step of understanding that I didn't know everything and that I didn't have to control everything helped me get to this point now where I can do more. I can expand. So going back to my point of being resourceful with a little bit of faith is you don't have to know all of the information. What you do need to know is who to get the information from. Now let's talk about how do you become resourceful in your business, okay? I'm giving you so many examples, but if it wasn't painted out in the stories, I will just tell you exactly how to be resourceful. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to a journal and write out what are things that you lack on when it comes to your business, whether that's responding on time to clients, posting consistently, sure your inventory is correctly correct, what type of insurance to have on your business, everything that you need to run your business and how much it costs to run your business. Everything that you lack on in your business, you need to write that down. The reason why you need to write that down is it creates a checklist of things that you need to get correct, that you need to correct throughout the year, throughout the months, throughout the weeks, however fast you can get this done. It gives you a checklist of what you need to do. The next thing you need to do to become resourceful is, of course, go look up who does it. My favorite way of how I look up things to understand things more is first, I always go to TikTok and I type in whatever I'm looking for and I watch videos on it, right? Watch videos, whatever. Then the next thing that I do is I go to longer form content, which is YouTube. Watch longer form content on what to do, right? If I still don't know that there's information, I start putting bugs in people's ears of things I want to know. So something that I used to pride myself on is that I used to always keep things quiet. I never would tell people how I was moving. I'm gonna tell you now, there is a good thing about moving in silence, but there's also a part that can hurt you. And that's the part we're talking about in this video. And me telling people some parts of my business, telling them some of what I'm trying to do, also helps people who are genuinely looking out for me or genuinely who care find those people for me, right? Like, it says, I'll let you guys. So for instance, for my next business, it's more of like a consultant. I want to do consulting, right? So within consulting thing, I end up talking to my client at the time who actually ended up working in my business. Talking to the client, telling her a little bit about what I'm thinking about doing. And she was like, a lot like life coaching. And I was like, okay, I really heard about life coaching. She tells me information about life coaching and she ends up being a therapist, right? She is a therapist in the space that I'm in. So she tells me like how much her workload is, and she was like, I really can't keep up with my life coaching clients. So she was like, if you want to learn and like get more experience before you tap into your clientele and also make money into it, I can actually get you the stuff so that you can be trained, and I will train you a little bit more and then give you my clients. What do you mean? How is it that like having a simple conversation, me telling a little bit of this information got me that? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I do. Is so I get bugs out into people's ears and they end up bringing me people, because at the same time, you shouldn't always expect certain things like that from everybody, and I don't ever expect it. But the thing is, it's always a trade-off. I never expect information without giving information that person might need. You know what I'm saying? So that also means being very versed in what a lot of things that can really help you network with people. So I won't really tap into it too much, but like, the word socialite is being reclaimed into like a very powerful woman who's very versed in the arts and creativity and all that type of stuff. And I didn't know I was working on that these past like 5 years of my life, but that's really what I was doing. I became very versed. I became very knowledgeable in multiple areas of things. So although those aren't my main things, it might be one of my clients or it might be somebody I meet out on the streets things. And that way we can pass them off, because I give out the information and they're like, okay, this girl is like nice. She doesn't gatekeep anything. They're also, when they hear something that maybe like they hear something from somebody else that might align with me, really helps. Like I remember, like I have clients who recommend me, or that other service providers who will recommend me to their people, or that trade-off gets to become a very good person, which I will want to tap into how to be a good person without being a people pleaser. Okay, let me emphasize that. But anyway, so back to what I do. So those are my things to help me actually become more resourceful. But that does not help if you don't actually implement any of those things into what you are doing, right? So after you get the resource, you have to execute, right? Everything about this channel is literally talking about how to execute on things. There is no reason that you're reading all these books, watching all these videos, going to all these events, talking to all these people, and you're not doing any of the work. But that's where a lot of people fall off. They think that people are just supposed to do everything for them. No, you have to do the work to be able to get what you want, right? You can't expect so much from other people and you're not giving any yourself. It really doesn't work that way. And then my last tip on how to become very resourceful is to also teach it to someone else. Okay, when you're growing your business, you want to know everything, right? You want to try to know everything. You can't understand a lot of things if you're not able to teach it to somebody else. Just like with studying, like say whenever you can teach somebody else. It's the same concept whenever we go into our business and how we want to grow it. Like we understand some things, we need to be able to teach it to somebody else so that we know that, because we don't want this other person that we're teaching it to fail. So example of that is I started teaching brow mapping classes. So I'm pretty much at the point where I know some brows. I love me some brows, know me some brows, whatever. So now it's time for me to start teaching it to other people. And getting the confidence to teach some of these other people is really hard, because the inquiries that I've had and also the people that I've actually trained, like, thought they already knew how to do this, right? I thought they already knew how to do it, but now they're coming to me because, one, by my work, it looks really good, but also they just want to learn the technique and they want to invest more into their business, which they should. And so now I have to hold myself more accountable to know exactly what I'm doing, what I'm using, how I do things, so that it transfers easily to my person that I'm teaching. So I have to know everything about what I'm doing. And that's what you should do for yourself if you want to add in employees or add in a new system or this is down a third, or even how I did, where I went to my brother to go over my finances to tell me how I'm supposed to actually align them and make them grow. That helps, like, know that now. So now I can either give off some responsibility because I know what it's supposed to be. Like I've learned, so I like to watch Real Housewives of Atlanta and Real Housewives of Potomac. And for the business owners on there, the clear difference that I see, the underlying tone that I see in all of their stuff is that when their businesses do bad, it's because they were unaware of things. The more you're unaware, the more you don't know stuff about your business, the easier it is for it to fail. And you need to be real with yourself when it comes to that, or else you will fail, of course. So that is how these big companies can go under, like 21 or Route 21, that are going down because, one, they won't adjust to how the new climate of the world is, and two, because they are unaware of different parts of their business. So it's easy there are evil people, there are things that can be put in place that can upset what you want to do. So you have to know what the heck is going on. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys got some good information on how to be resourceful within your business so that you can grow. I'm telling you, you only grow as much as you allow yourself to do. So make sure you're taking the time out to really evaluate yourself. Do it weekly. Do not do it monthly. Don't do it yearly. Do it weekly. It needs to be in front of your face all the time. And that's how you can be innovative to become very successful. If you're not already following the Poised in Progress Instagram, make sure you guys go and follow that, because I do all the updates and everything like that. Like I say in every video, I'm still trying to get onto TikTok. I don't know. TikTok is just so scary to me. I don't know. It's so scary to me, even though like literally post on TikTok every single day for my aesthetics business. It's just like me talking, I don't know. Anyways, but we're gonna get over it. All right. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good week. If you have any questions or you want to leave any comments, make sure you guys DM me on Poised in Progress Instagram, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.